The echoes of the crowd had barely settled when the world realized the middleweight division had changed forever. In a sport where moments define legacies, Khamzat Chimaev didn't just win a fight, he ripped away the belt from Dricus Du Plessis and made a statement so loud that every fighter, every coach, and every fan in the arena understood what it meant. He was no longer just the hype train, no longer the prospect everyone whispered about. On that night, he was the undisputed UFC middleweight champion, and he had done it with the kind of dominance that leaves the division in shock. The headlines came fast, blunt, and unforgiving. Chimaev crushes Du Plessis. A stomping. One outlet even described it as a fight that could have been scored 50-8. The numbers didn't lie. And after round, Chimaev smothered the champion with relentless wrestling, chaining one attack to the next, until Du Plessis looked less like a defending title holder and more like a man drowning. Under waves he couldn't escape. The performance wasn't flashy. It wasn't a knockout born from a single devastating punch. It was systematic destruction, control, pressure, and suffocation. The kind of mastery that silences doubters. The kind that forces everyone to ask not whether he deserved the belt, but how far this man can actually go. And yet, in the middle of this dominance, Khamzat Chimaev wasn't gloating. He wasn't standing over his fallen opponent with arrogance. Instead, he was humble. In the post-fight interview, he even apologized for not finishing the fight, as though the one-sided demolition of a reigning champion wasn't enough. He praised Du Plessis for surviving what he called unbearable pressure, referring to him as a real lion. But humility didn't mean a lack of ambition. Because while many had speculated that this might be his final fight, Chimaev quickly shut down those rumors with a smirk and a few simple words. "I need money, bro." He wasn't going anywhere. In fact, his goals had only grown larger. Most fighters dare not even whisper about such things, but Chimaev spoke openly about chasing something unprecedented, becoming a 3-division champion. He already owned the welterweight resume, now he was middleweight king, and he was eyeing light heavyweight next. Welterweight, middleweight, light heavyweight, 3 crowns. A goal so audacious it bordered on madness, but when it comes from a man who just dismantled a champion with near perfection, it doesn't sound impossible. It sounds terrifyingly realistic. But ambition means little without challengers, and the question immediately turned to who was next. One name rose to the surface almost instantly: Sean Strickland. The former champion, known for his grit, his relentless pressure, and his refusal to back down, stood as the most likely next opponent. The odds makers had already placed him ahead of names like Paulo Costa, Nasruddin Imavov, and Caio Borralho. What made the matchup even more intriguing was history. Chimaev and Strickland had trained together, sparred, and carried the kind of personal tension that makes a fight more than just a contest of skill. It would be a story of familiarity turned to rivalry, and one that could easily headline an event on its own. For Dricus Du Plessis, the night was brutal, but not the end. His career remains alive with possibilities. He's still one of the most dangerous middleweights in the world, and with just a couple of wins, his name will be right back in the title conversation. His record speaks for itself. His style ensures exciting matchups, and his resilience, even in defeat, guarantees respect. In fact, long before this fight, whispers had already followed him about moving up in weight, walking around at 210 pounds. A transition to light heavyweight might not just make sense, it might be inevitable. Brendan Schaub and others had even suggested the possibility of Du Plessis pursuing multiple belts himself. Whether that dream becomes reality is another matter, but what it does reveal is that the loss hasn't diminished his reputation. He may have been beaten, but he was not broken. The truth is, few expected Du Plessis to make this easy. Analysts had sounded the alarms well before fight night. Joe Rogan, never one to mince words, had said it plainly. The mat would decide this fight. He warned that Du Plessis couldn't let Chimaev dictate the wrestling, couldn't afford to be trapped under the suffocating weight of his top control. Rogan even joked that Du Plessis might need to bend the rules just to survive, highlighting the almost unfair nature of the matchup when it came to grappling. And yet, when the cage door closed in Chicago, it unfolded exactly as Rogan predicted. Du Plessis was stuck, pinned, drowning in positions from which escape seemed impossible. Michael Bisping had offered similar advice. His perspective was that Du Plessis couldn't run from the wrestling. He needed to meet force with force, forced Chimaev into a striking battle where his power could matter. Avoidance was a death sentence. Neutralization was the only chance. And while the advice was sound, the execution never came. Every sprawl failed. Every wall walk was crushed. Every moment of separation ended the same way. Du Plessis on his back, looking for answers that never arrived. Bisping's tactical breakdown was accurate. Du Plessis simply didn't have the weapons to make it reality. From the training room, Darren Till had been one of the loudest voices singing Chimaev's praises. Having spent countless hours with him, Till described a man whose wrestling wasn't just good, it was otherworldly. He talked about the endless pace, the suffocating strength, the way teammates struggled to remain standing. His prediction wasn't hype, it was testimony. And when the fight began, it proved prophetic. Chimaev's chain wrestling was seamless, flowing from one attempt to the next until the result was inevitable. It wasn't raw talent alone, it was precision and discipline. Legends of the sport echoed the same theme. Georges St-Pierre spoke about the sheer strength of Chimaev's wrestling, a strength he believed few middleweights could counter. Daniel Cormier, a man who knows grappling better than most, broke down the dangers of Chimaev's crucifix position, warning that if it was locked in, the fight would be over. Even Israel Adesanya, who leaned toward Du Plessis at times, admitted that if Chimaev won, it would be by turning the fight into a wrestling clinic. And so it was. What made the performance even more fascinating was not just that Chimaev won, but how closely reality mirrored the predictions. The analysts had drawn the blueprint, and Chimaev executed it almost step for step. The only difference was patience. Many believed he would look for a quick finish once control was established. Instead, Chimaev displayed remarkable discipline for a man in his first title fight. He wasn't hunting for the highlight. He was hunting certainty. Round after round, he drained the champion, secured position, and removed risk. It wasn't about flash. It was about dominance. By the time the final horn sounded, Du Plessis was bloodied, exhausted, and defeated. His shoulders slumped. His face told the story of a man who had given everything only to be met with a wall he couldn't move. Chimaev, meanwhile, stood nearly untouched, smiling as the belt was strapped around his waist, his reign as champion just beginning. The crowd's reaction was split. Some booed, frustrated at the lack of violent exchanges, yearning for knockouts and chaos. Others applauded, recognizing that what they had just witnessed wasn't boring. It was mastery. It was the unveiling of a champion who didn't just win, but dismantled. And in mixed martial arts, mastery matters more than spectacle.